Hey, this is Brandon from T-Man Performance. Today I wanted to go over a few of the finer details that we look for when we're doing our valve jobs. Valve job on a head is very important because not only does it affect the way the head seals, but it affects the flow as well as how your spring pack's going to come out. So to get a valve job to be the way that it should, you have to pay attention to the finer details and the smaller points. First and foremost being guide fitment. The pilot on the sturdy here that holds our tool fits down inside of the guide, and if the guide itself is too loose, it'll allow that pilot to push off and walk inside of the guide itself, which will result in bad runout. If it's too tight, it'll allow the valve to stick later down the road. So when we're doing our guide fitment, we put 8/10 on the intake and 1 2/10 on the exhaust. So we'll check that here with just a dummy guide. It's a good guide fitment. The next thing that we look for is the inside diameter when we're cutting our inside diameter. This is very important because too large of an inside diameter and you can't keep your port velocity up when you're flowing. Too small and it bottlenecks it. So we set all of ours, we've worked very hard to find the perfect percentage for each kind of valve or angle or port style. So we have all of our tools preset for that, for each valve or angle or port style, and adjust accordingly. That way we can just come in and cut and move on with our valve job. Next thing is the runout on the guide, or on the seat, I'm sorry. We don't let a head off of this bench with more than 1/1000 runout. And the runout is how concentric the seat is to your center point, which would be your guide here. You want it to be, like I said, no more than 1/1000. If it's more than 1/1000, it means that your seat is cocked. And then when the valve comes and sits on it, it doesn't have even pressure along the entire seat, which will result in it not sealing, it will result in uneven wear, and eventually just damage up your whole valve train. So, the key to getting the runout under 1/1000 is steady pressure along when you're cutting your seat and making sure that you're not hitting on high spots or anything of that nature. When we check our runout, we have our runout gauge here. We'll fit our pilot in. Place our dial on our 45 or 50 degree angle. Let me see the gauge there. And as you can see, let's zoom in there and see if you can get that. As you can see, this one's running about 4 to 5/10, 1/1000. So that's very good. The next thing that we want to make sure of is that our valve depths are the same. We have all of our custom valves made to be placed in at a specific depth. That way the spring pack pressure comes up evenly on our beehives or our dual springs. So these here valves we want set at 2" 085. So we've got our gauge here. That one's about 2" 086. Move on to this one. About 2" 085 on the dot. Now this is very important that it stays within 1/1000 of each other, because then you might have one valve come up at 1" 860 spring pack, and then the next one might come up at 865, 870. So we like to keep everything as even as possible. One thing that I forgot to show you before when we're doing the cutting part of the valve job is that you want to make sure that there's no chatter on your seats. You want a nice smooth surface, smooth concentric angles, no chatter, no blemishes, nothing along that nature, because that'll create the valve not to seal. And one final way that we check to make sure that everything's good, when you get done doing that valve job, you want that valve to have a nice pop to it. So that's the sound of a good valve job, 1/1000. Come on over here. Another thing I wanted to show you is that after the valve job is done and the depths are set, sometimes in certain chambers it'll leave this step here. Right? You can't leave that there, one, because it could create a hot spot, and two, it could shroud the valve, which will make your mid-range numbers drop tremendously by shrouding the valve. So what we'll do in this situation is we'll come in with a radius tool. Set our radius tool up there. Let it center. Let me get my safety glasses. We'll let our machine here settle. We'll mark off where we want to cut to. We just go until it blends it into a nice angle. You don't want any steps or sharp transitions. Get our tool up to speed. Put a nice radius on it, and that completely unshrouds that valve. Then we'll take it into the porting room when it's getting radiused and chambered, and smooth all of this into the chamber here. And the last thing that we do before we pull our heads off of the bench is we lap in the 45, just with some lapping compound here. A nice smooth lap. This ensures, one, that when it's being radiused and chambered, that the 45 is pronounced, or the 50-degree angle, not ran over, anything of that nature. And it also gives it a nice, bold line along that, and on the valve itself. So, before each head is sent out to the customer, it is, after it's assembled, we put it on a leak down head over here and test to make sure that it's sealed up tight, that no pressure is getting past the seats, past the guides, or automatic compression releases, anything of that nature. We don't let our heads out of here unless they seal with 100 pounds in them, no leaks, no bubbles, no hisses, or anything of that nature. But we'll take a video on that another time and show you how we go about that. So just wanted to do this short video and show you guys some of the finer points that we do when we're looking at our valve jobs, and all of these things are necessities to make sure that a valve job is top-notch and at our level of quality. So hope you enjoyed, and a little tech tip from T-Man Performance. Thank you.